Well, my typical luck, I guess. On the day I published what is probably the most elaborate video I've ever made, a significant piece of breaking news was revealed. A while ago, I mentioned a new documentary on the Tower of London, which promised to explore fresh evidence about the princes in the tower. Now we know what the Channel 5 documentary has brought to light. The highlight is the discovery of the last will of Margaret Capell, dated 1522. This document, found by Tim Thornton, was showcased in the documentary hosted by Tracy Borman, chief curator of historic royal palaces, alongside actor Jason Watkins. Thornton uncovered the document in the National Archives, where it is catalogued as PROB 11/19. Central to this discovery is a sentence in the will that seemingly confirms the princes were killed. Borman described this as a smoking gun, pointing to the gravity of the words, "Also I bequeath to my son, Sir Giles, his father's chain, which was young King Edward the V's." Margaret Capell was the sister-in-law of Sir James Tyrrell, who, according to Thomas More, confessed to the murder of the princes in 1502. She was also the half-sister of Tyrrell's wife, Anne. The theory is that Tyrrell passed this chain to Margaret's husband, who then left it to Margaret. She, in turn, bequeathed it to her son. Margaret was married to Sir William Capell, a former Lord Mayor of London, and she was the daughter of Sir John Arundel. Thornton and Borman propose that this was no ordinary chain, but the chain of office as king, a unique item that would definitively identify Edward V as its owner. Its presence in the Capell family implies someone close to Edward was with him at his end. Thornton finds the discovery particularly compelling because it is the first recorded instance of an object belonging to the princes reappearing. It wasn't just the boys who disappeared, he explains. Their clothes, their belongings just seemed to disappear. No one ever seems to refer to them. So, what does this chain tell us about the fate of the princes in the tower? The National Archives views the find as realistic, yet inconclusive. Sean Cunningham, head of collections at the Medieval and Early Modern Institution, commented, "Margaret's reference to a chain once owned by the uncrowned teenage King Edward V is a new piece of evidence that raises more questions than it answers. Edward V vanished from public view within the walls of the tower in summer 1483, 33 years before this will was written. It is fascinating to speculate how the Capell family came to own an expensive piece of jewelry that once belonged to Edward during his short life, and why it was identified in this specific way, such a long time after his disappearance. Let's examine the possibilities. First, the information in the will could be incorrect. The chain might not have belonged to Edward at all. Margaret Capell may have misattributed it, or she might have embellished the item's provenance. Additionally, it might not have been Edward's chain of office. Still, Margaret's use of young King Edward suggests she believed it was indeed his, not just any Edward's. Second, possessing Edward's chain doesn't necessarily implicate anyone, including Richard III, in murder. Even if it were Edward's chain of office, the real question is how the Capell family acquired it. While the connection to Tyrrell suggests he may have passed it on, there's no definitive proof. It's also possible Edward escaped the tower, rendering the chain unnecessary to him since he wanted to live anonymously. That said, it seems unlikely anyone would risk holding onto such a significant item if Edward had survived or was murdered. This chain, being such a potentially explosive piece of evidence, would presumably have been destroyed to avoid detection. The will also tells us nothing about the fate of Richard of Shrewsbury, Edward's younger brother. The long-standing theory is that Richard was killed alongside Edward, yet this document provides no direct evidence for that. In fact, Some argue the reappearance of an object linked to Edward, but not Richard, lends credence to speculation that Edward died while Richard escaped, a theory that gained traction with the appearance of Perkin Warbeck. As for Edward's chain of office, if authentic, its existence challenges certain other theories. For instance, it undermines the claim that Lambert Simnel was Edward V. Simnel never possessed the necklace nor mentioned it. If the chain had come into Tudor hands, they likely would have destroyed it immediately to suppress its implications. So, what's my verdict? This new evidence does not definitively prove the princes were murdered in the Tower, nor does it convict Richard III. The will, while an important find, is not the smoking gun Borman described. However, it does strongly suggest that Edward V never left the Tower alive. But what do you think? Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.